Hey everybody, how's it going? We are back in our kitchen. You get another video of us, mostly David, making his famous chili. So we're just gonna go through the process.
So I don't know whether this makes sense or not, but my mom always did this when she was doing anything with like browning meat. She always put salt in the bottom of the pan first.
We have this lovely chili pot. I mean, it's just like a big stock pot, but it's perfect for chili.
I guess the idea of putting it in first is that it keeps the meat from sticking, maybe? I don't know. But I mean, that was also before we had these fancy high-tech, I don't know what you want to call it, pots.
Right.
But in any event, that's the plan. So we're going to brown the ground beef first. Ooh.
I don't know why that like
cow.
comes up so high.
Yeah. And it's not supposed to be orange either.
Yeah.
So we're using 3 pounds of ground beef. And why do we use the super lean stuff?
We
I
like.
should have showed all the fancy
Yeah.
ingredients.
So we've got different kinds of black beans, and then kidney beans, garlic, onion, green pepper, of course, the Guinness.
Yeah, you have to have, we usually just use beer of some variety, but you have to have something like that. And by the way, always wash your hands after
Yes.
we handle stuff.
It's our biggest pet peeve when we see people like touch food,
On the
touch
cooking
raw
shows.
meat, and then they like put their, and they'll put it like in the salt, pepper, like thing, and it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, that's not good.
And they don't, when they do, they'll like run their hands under the water. It's like that Seinfeld episode where the chef uses the bathroom and doesn't wash his hands.
Right. It's kind of
So
fake.
At least run your hands under the water, for my benefit. At least pretend. But in any event, so that's going to take a few minutes, obviously, to start browning.
Yep.
And then, I know there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just start putting the seasoning in there, rather than like waiting for it to get completely browned. I don't know whether it makes a difference or not, but it just seems like
I think it works. So
it makes more sense to get it going.
So what are we putting in there now?
This just chili powder to start. There's no rhyme or reason to it, and I don't measure. So, good luck.
Yeah.
The one thing that we didn't, the one thing I'm actually, I don't know if we'll need the other one, but I'm dumping that right now.
All right.
The one thing that we don't have out is that we are going to add some sugar, some brown sugar.
Yes.
Although I don't know exactly when you want to do that. I'm kind of thinking after it gets going.
I kind of think after it gets going.
Part of the problem is that almost everything, not everything, but most of the elements here are a little bitter. There's cumin, there's chili powder, the Guinness is a little bit bitter. We use Worcestershire sauce. Oh, shoot, that was a lot. We probably won't put any more of that in. I actually tend to add the spices several times.
And then kind of build up.
But I may not add any more cumin because that was more than I was thought I was adding. We add oregano. Oh, and there's another missing element, which is cayenne pepper.
Yes.
So,
Which I think we definitely have.
we do. The question is, can I locate it quickly? And
We have this like spice thing, but I know it's in a baby.
It's a bit of a monster. No, it's a larger one.
Oh, it is a larger one.
However, it's not cinnamon. I'm sure there's a recipe that has cinnamon in it.
What's this? That's paprika.
Cayenne pepper.
Oh, nice. That was.
I put everything back in there together on purpose. But now we're also going to add a hot pepper.
Oh yes.
Which I managed to leave in the refrigerator. I'll get that. But anyway, so most of the things, or a lot of the elements that we add are kind of bitter. We do put a bell pepper in there, which is sweet, of course. We add onion, which has some sweetness. We like to use, we've used different peppers over the years, but we like to use these Hungarian hot peppers. They seem to have the right amount of heat. They're not excessively hot, but we leave the seeds and the veins in.
I was just gonna say we.
But so once it gets going, we are going to add a little bit of brown sugar to mellow it out because there's all of these sort of bitter elements. And On top of that, we usually add some tomato paste to sort of thicken it up a little bit, but that of course is kind of acidic. So it's
And I
got
think
some
that's the
sweetness, but
key
also-
to your chili being the way that I like it is because it's like thick and it's not a bunch of canned tomatoes with the juice in it. It's just the tomato paste.
Right. And I also, I mean, it's kind of silly, but I like the color when you add the tomato paste. 'Cause
Yeah.
It gives it this really kind of rich, sort of reddish color, which I happen to like. Salt and pepper. We gotta always add the one thing I will say for the Food Network is that they did teach us one of the most important lessons, which is to season it at every phase.
I've subjected David to countless hundreds of hours of cooking TV with me.
So that's basically the seasonings that started out, and then we get to break it up. This is the second workout of the day.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mind. Oh, we probably should have showed it before we started doing this. I don't mind it if it's a little bit. I think we need to turn up the heat a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't mind it if there are some sizable bits, but I like it kind of like even, in terms of not huge chunks of ground beef and then small, tiny little ones.
Right.
And also, the more it heats and browns and everything, the easier it gets to sort of break it up. So we're going to let that go for a little bit and come back and break it up from time to time. That was nice, that nice loud bang. Okay, so what did we do? We got all the basic seasoning in.
Yes.
We're not going to add anything liquid until it's fully browned, but then it'll be Lee & Perrins Worcestershire sauce, Guinness, and the special part of it is that we put all of the vegetables in the blender with the Guinness.
Yes.
And that actually would be, it's like a Guinness milkshake with pepper and onions.
It is.
I would just drink that if I could.
Because I kind
Probably.
of like it without chunks of the vegetables in it.
Well, and that's the thing. When you're putting a lot of different things in a dish, any kind of dish, I feel like you want the things blended most of the time. Like mole sauce has about 1,000 ingredients. They put breadcrumbs or like croutons in it. They put raisins in it. They put chocolate, all this stuff. But it wouldn't really work if if there were raisins floating around in the sauce. It's the blending it all together that makes a difference. So I kind of like that approach in general. We've done that with pasta sauce when we've kind of made it from scratch.
Yep.
So anyway, we don't really have to cut the vegetables up super finely because they're going to go into the blender.
Yep.
I do like taking the veins out of. It's funny, we leave all that stuff in with the hot pepper, but not with the sweet pepper. But anyway, now I'll do the thing that would drive my dad nuts. Never, never, never have the blade come towards you. You would
Right.
say if you're cutting, sawing.
We've already had a
whatever.
couple of knife incidents recently, so we don't want to.
Still recovering from that. Going on 2 weeks of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I try to get, obviously we'll rinse the seeds off, try to get the vein out of there. Because especially with the bell pepper, I mean, the advantage of bell pepper is it is really sweet, and that's kind of what you want out of that. That's the flavor you want out of that. So we'll rinse these guys off a little bit. And everything is just going to go into the blender. Whoops. Pay no attention to these bits of onion that just fell onto the floor. So we use a whole white onion, as you saw, a whole bell pepper. Depending on, how much, the quantity you're making, obviously. I mean, this is going to be 3 pounds of ground beef, 3 cans of dark red kidney beans, and 3 cans of black beans. Love the black beans. I would do it with just black beans if I could, but I feel like it's traditional to include the kidney beans.
Yeah, and I like any kind of beans, so that's fine with me.
Black beans, though, clearly the best.
Superior
beans.
bean.
The superior beans. I like the size, I like the texture, and of course the flavor is fantastic. But I don't think you can really make chili without kidney beans. It just doesn't seem right. So I'm just going to cut the onion into some kind of larger chunks and put it in the blender because, as we said, it's all going to get liquefied in the end. So you don't need to be very precise about this, or at least I don't worry about being too precise about it. And then lots of garlic.
Yes.
I don't know if that's necessarily all that traditional to put as much garlic in there as I put in there. However, it's garlic. What could possibly go wrong? So we tend to put a lot in there.
I love garlic anyway, so that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And I suppose I shouldn't let this go completely unattended.
Oh yeah, it's looking good.
Starting to brown. We probably won't add any more seasoning or anything else until it's thoroughly browned and we're ready to add the vegetables and the liquids. And then the very last thing, after, well, not the very last thing, after that's all in there, then we'll just add the kidney beans and the black beans.
Which we drain first,
We
right?
drain first, but I don't go through a whole, I'm not super fussy about it. I just put them in a little colander,
Yeah.
rinse them off a little bit, shake it, dump it in there. If there's a little bit of that starchy stuff in there, who cares?
Yeah.
Just kind of helps thicken it up a little bit, I think.
I think so too.
In any event. So the garlic part is just take the biggest possible cloves you can. Or what do you, this is a clove or this is a clove?
I think that's a clove, the baby one.
That's how I always thought about it. But then when I said it, I thought, am I using the wrong terminology? And you don't have to do a whole lot to them other than, obviously, you know, peel them. I like to smash them to get the oil coming out of there a little bit. I like to chop off the little hard end because even though it's going in the blender, I'm going to smash that a little bit more. You don't necessarily want the little hard bits to surface when you're eating the chili. And now maybe my favorite part, we're going to add the pepper. I don't know if this is really necessary, but I always feel like I have to do it with the hand that I handle it with. Glove up. Whenever we have gloves like this, it reminds me of the movie American Psycho. Never mind. I probably shouldn't have said that. I've said too much already. So like I said, we just leave the veins and the seeds in there. Usually, you know, cut it in a couple of larger chunks. And this is kind of like the last thing because we're getting hot stuff on the cutting board. So, ooh, look at that. I think our knife needs to be sharpened. But so we're just going to leave it in there, seeds and all.
Yep.
Veins, seeds. Because it's lovely and we like it to be a little hot. We've already added cayenne pepper. Not an excessive amount, but
No.
some. Oh, get rid of the little head. I like that. And then, maybe the real favorite part. No, we drink it. And this will be lovely. It will smell phenomenal when it's all done. And you can hear the simmering meat. It's getting to the point where it's almost done. This is kind of loud. I don't know if you want to maybe not be right by the blender when it goes on.
Yeah.
And then I usually just start with the chop first. You get it kind of going, break everything up a little bit. Let's just see what that looks like. Oh, I didn't really quite put that on. It was just a little tiny bit. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at
So it
that.
looks amazing.
So before we put that in there, stir this up a little bit. It's pretty much browned. There's a little pink in there, but it's going to cook for a long time, so I'm not too worried about that. I don't think people eat rare chili, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Probably not.
Probably not. So now it's pretty well browned. Before we add that, I'm going to add a little Worcestershire sauce. Got to get that anchovy flavor in there. No, there are anchovies in there. And again, I don't measure. I just kind of wing it. And then, well, let's stir it up first. It's a little briny. It's a little peppery.
Another vegetable milkshake.
Yeah. Although it's more of a smoothie, I suppose.
Yeah.
We may have to come back and scrape some of that out.
Yeah. Yeah, that smells so good.
Even if you use cheap beer, it smells really great. Like even if you use Miller Lite or something, which we've done. I'm not going to deny it. We've used cheap beer for this.
But we had a random lone Guinness left, so.
It was left over from our election day extravaganza.
Yes. Our Instagram Live.
Where we drank beer and tried to ignore what was happening in the world. Like always, a little salt and pepper. That was kind of a lot, but you know, there's a lot of stuff.
It's a big
here.
quantity.
It's a big quantity. We're gonna need to buy more pepper after this is over. And before adding the tomato paste and the beans, I think we should add a little more seasoning, because it's never not the right time to add spice and heat.
True.
To anything, really. You know? Pay no attention to that. I thought I'd use that all up. Don't worry, we have the backup
We do.
container of chili powder. A little more cayenne pepper. Some oregano.
Nice.
And let's give that a stir. And then I'm going to suggest that we add the brown sugar before the tomato paste, because
All right.
I think it'll make it easier to blend in. Oh, it's a lovely smell. But this it kind of explains why I like to add the tomato paste, because it's very loose at this moment, especially with the whole can of Guinness. And it's also, it's not the most appealing color.
Right.
You know, there's a little green in there. There's obviously brown in there. So the tomato paste sort of brightens it up a little bit. So our theory is, this we're going to measure. So we don't always do this. We don't always add something sweet to it, because, you know, some of the things, obviously, that we've put in are sweet. But really, I think it needs something to mellow out that bitterness of it. So our theory is, and we'll report back,
2 tablespoons.
2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And then it's a little over, but I think that makes sense.
I think it does too.
You know, I know there's other options like honey, and I guess you could just use regular sugar, but to me this makes sense. I think it'll
I agree.
blend. I think it'll mellow out some of that bitterness. It still smells good. And then we'll start with all the canned stuff.
All
And
right.
I'm going to add some tomato paste with Jennifer's fancy scraper.
Love.
As Emerald would say, not a spatula, a scraper.
Right.
Emerald always says, a spatula is for flipping, a scraper is for scraping.
Yes.
This is a very large can of tomato paste, so needless to say, we don't want to add it all, but we do want it to thicken up a bit. If we were, you know, in the old days, we would make we do it with 5 pounds of beef and 5 cans of both kidney and black beans.
Yes.
So we would add more, because it would be more complicated. these days, fewer people are eating the chili. So, not that it doesn't make great leftovers.
Yeah, it makes
you know,
amazing
we
leftovers.
Tone it down a little bit. We'll stir that in. Something came flying out of there. Ooh, it does smell very good.
It does.
I am going to add a little more salt and pepper once we get this in there. Try to dissolve it. And I definitely prefer the color once we get this in there too.
Yeah, because then it starts to look like chili.
Yeah. You eat with your eyes, as they say. It's a little loose. Do you think we should add just a bit more to thicken up? Or not? We don't need to, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, let's put a little bit more.
It's a collaborative process, you know.
I don't think it's gonna hurt to put more.
I don't think it'll hurt, and I do think it'll thicken it up a little bit. Normally, you know, with tomato paste, a little goes a long way, but I think with something like this, there's so much going on. There's a lot of bold flavor. That sounds like such a cliche.
Yeah.
But, you know, but I mean, there's a lot of flavor in there, and so it doesn't really hurt. And like I said, I am going to add a little salt and pepper just to kind of be consistent, adding it every, every time you add something new. It's not a bad idea to season it a little bit. I don't like it to be overly salty, but if you don't add salt, you're not going to have any flavor. And one of the reasons why I like to use, sort of the same name, the beef, the leaner ground beef, is because then we don't bother to skim it. It's whatever fat is in there, you know. So, but the fat, you know, sort of has the opposite effect of salt. So it kind of dampens the flavors. So you want to make sure you put enough salt in to bring them out. All
Looking
right.
good.
Then I think we're gonna add the beans. And basically, all we're gonna do is run some water through them. I prefer cold water. Whoa! You told me you did that. I just missed it. Check them out a little bit. And into the pan. We'll just alternate for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So those are black beans. Now we got kidney beans. So we're almost done. And then you have your staff come in and clean for you.
Right.
Throw everything away. Put everything in the dishwasher. And my hands are all covered with bean detritus. Oh yeah. It is a lot of beans, but you know what? They're good for you.
They are.
Oh, I just saw a little piece of onion that didn't get completely liquefied.
Shushed.
Yeah. And then, just in keeping with our tradition, a little more salt. Not our tradition, but our
Process.
our MO. A little more salt and pepper. And then, unless it needs any more seasoning or whatever, this is basically it. And
Yeah, we just let it simmer for a
let
while.
it simmer, and then we come back and check it out after a little bit. See if it needs anything else. Hopefully it does not. And
Good job.
that's basically it. So it takes a little while, but it's, you know, as preparing a meal goes, it's actually not all that complicated.
It's not that complicated.
I know there are more complicated recipes that you can find online, but this seems to work for us. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
Excellent. Good job. I can't wait for dinner.
So now this is the moment of truth. We're going to test it out. Don't get your sleeve in there.
I know. I don't want to burn my mouth.
It's a little hot. Maybe we should have done that first. Is it all right?
It's perfect, actually.
You're sure?
Yes. Cannot wait for dinner.
We don't have to add cinnamon or raisins or nutmeg or whatever crazy thing other people might add. Okay.
And it's like, it's not super spicy, but it's got a kick to it, so it's good.
Excellent.